we chase the shiny objects, the squirrels, the things that are fun and not easily systematized and not worked into our regular routine. And so even though it may be fun, it adds complexity to the business, and complexity is the enemy of profit. It is the enemy of freed up time for an entrepreneur who wants to take their life back. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. At Tap the Potential, we know that you want to be freed from the constant demands of your business. In order to do that, you need a business that supports your life. The problem is you have a cash-sucking business taking over your life, leaving you frustrated and discouraged. We believe work supports life, not the other way around. We understand you're paying a team and you're still having to do it all. There should be accountability. It shouldn't be this hard, which is why through our proprietary coaching system, we help thousands of business owners just like you have more time for what's important to them and grow profit by 300 to 800%. Here's how we do it. First, take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Next, meet with our success team lead to debrief your results. Then, join our Better Business, Better Life program. By the end of your first year with us, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had before. So take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment so you can stop working so hard for so little return. Take your life back. So welcome to the podcast. Today's episode, I'm so excited to be able to be here in a conversation with Stacey Seguin. Stacey is one of our favorite members of the Tap the Potential team, and all of the members of the Tap the Potential team are my favorite because we have a great team here at Tap the Potential. So I really enjoy whenever the strategists particularly meet because we get to banter about different business situations and strategies for helping our clients deal with these different situations. Stacey on our team is a strategist who specializes in profit first. She's one of our profit first masters on the team. And she brings both profit first and pumpkin planning expertise. She also trains pumpkin plan strategists. So we're really lucky to have her with us at Tap the Potential. She's really good at looking for how business owners can save more money in the business and make more money, particularly combining both profit first and pumpkin plan strategies. And that's, I think, Stacey's insights. One of the things that's nice about working with a team of strategists is we all see things from different angles. Stacey brings in a perspective sometimes that I don't see or that Darren, our other team member, doesn't see. And often it shines the light on opportunities for these business owners that no one had been paying attention to, including the business owner. So Stacey, do you want to share a little bit about what you really enjoy about your work?
So one of the things what I do at Tap the Potential is really a dream job, Dr. Sabrina, because I remember a conversation several years ago, and it was another strategist and profit first professional, and she called me up and asked me questions about a client that she was working with, and I was just giving her some guidelines about what their struggles were. And at the end of that conversation, she was asking me what I wanted to do in the next iteration of my life. And I was like, you know what? This conversation is what I want to do. I want to talk to business owners about what's going on in their business and help give them some insight about other things that are impacting that problem that they're working on and helping to shine the light on an area that they're not aware of or haven't seen. It's an opportunity. I think business owners see the problems that they're swirling around in, and they don't see the opportunities that they have for overcoming whatever the obstacle is.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. When we have a problem, we focus on the problem and we get tunnel vision. So we miss looking around us, and you shine the light really well on other opportunities. And just in that regard, one of the things that's been really fun this past month at Tap the Potential is we've seen our clients have some big successes, little successes that are actually big successes, and big successes that are very big successes. And, I'm thinking about one of our clients who came to us about this time last year, very overworked, really the typical working around the clock and just wearing the stress. Like we could see the stress on this individual. And the other day in group, she's reporting she's sleeping better, a lot more hours of sleep at night, ending her workday at a regular time, taking weekends off. That hadn't happened before. And so, for the rest of the world hearing that, they might be like, well, that's just kind of a normal life. What's the big deal? It's huge when we've been working so hard for so long and so many years. And, speaking to that tunnel vision that you were describing, Stacey, when we're in that place of entrepreneurial burnout and really working constantly, we don't see the opportunities in front of us. And so for us on the Tap the Potential team, I think it's really fun to be able to work with someone like that and say, hey, we can help you with this simple adjustment over here, and it'll make this go better and that go better. That's fun.
It is fun. And, she's not the only one going through that, right? There are so many business owners. Being a business owner, being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle. It's heart and soul. And it is from sun up to sundown and beyond. And it takes over our lives. Because I know this because I was living it for 20 years, not being able to take a vacation, not even taking a honeymoon, not knowing if you're going to be home when a baby is born.
Yeah.
These things are part of what makes life special. Sorry, I didn't mean to get upset about this, but it's my own story. It becomes excessive. And when you're pacing the floor from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. with the phone stuck to your ear and your kids start modeling that, you might be in a place of needing a change and not being able to recognize it. So,
yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that, Stacey, because you have lived this. And I think that's why we at Tap the Potential have so much compassion for what our clients are going through, because we've all been there and we really deeply understand it. And we also have taken so many business owners and gotten them to the other side. We know what's on the other side. We know it's possible to get there. And we also know at that moment when we're working with that business owner who is that stressed, you don't see it when you're in that place of stress.
Well, you're really coming from that place of, I can't, right? I can't afford to pay somebody else. I can't afford to pay myself. I can't. And the question isn't, can you? It's, how can you? Right? What has to change in order to make this possible?
That's a powerful question.
And it's a simple one,
yeah,
but it's not an easy one. It's not an easy answer, right?
Yeah.
You're making the choice to shut the computer down so that you can go to bed at a regular hour. There's a war that goes on within an individual to make that decision to shut it down. You think you're being productive, but you're really way past the point of productivity. And you have to acknowledge that.
Yes. Well, and that's where we end up working on the $100 an hour tasks instead of the $10,000 an hour tasks. And when we're in that space of stress like that, we don't even have the mental capacity to entertain $10,000 an hour thinking for our business. So this, just getting the sleep and downtime more regular for an entrepreneur is a very important piece, because that is when the stress starts to fall away. Sleep is the number one thing to do to reduce stress. And when you're working that much, getting 8 hours of sleep is very difficult just because you're so overstimulated by the time you go to bed. So getting the sleep regulated, getting the downtime in there, even taking a day off, like getting someone to take a Friday off when they haven't done that before, creates the space for that $10,000 an hour on the business, high value thinking to start happening. And that's where we see the shifts. in thinking about the wins and successes we've been celebrating with our clients this past month, another one comes to mind in a different situation where we've had a couple of business owners who they have established businesses. The businesses are in good shape overall, and they've been working with us over the last few years on improving things in the business. And really, I'm going to speak StrengthsFinder, maximizing the potential within the business. And so I'm thinking about one who has done pumpkin planning with her team over the course of 3 to 4 years. And just the other day in an email she sent, she said they had experienced a 462% increase in profit, not top line revenue, profit.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yes, due in part to the pumpkin planning and everything else that we've been doing with them at Tap the Potential.
Yeah. So that's an interesting, how does one create that? Right? That question of, okay, how do I get to the point where I have 462% increase in profit over a 4-year period? It's not something that happens overnight, but over a period of time, by creating a comparative advantage, not a competitive advantage, right? You're focusing on what's internal and productive in your business, who you serve, who your ideal clients are, what they love most about working with you, and then how can you innovate around serving them better, right? And it's that kind of analysis and that kind of planning that creates those opportunities for over 400% increase in profit.
Yes. So I want you to talk a little bit more about the difference between comparative and competitive advantage. You threw that out there, and that's significant. I think that's something we focus on at Tap the Potential that a lot of industry consultants and coaches don't focus on.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. And when you're focusing outwardly on your competition, the people over here that I'm competing against, what are they doing and how can I outdo them? You have a lot of energy focused outside your organization. And when you focus on inside your organization, what's happening over there with the competition becomes irrelevant. Okay. Not 100% irrelevant, but when you're serving your clients better and you're benchmarking that process, so you're taking notes and analyzing what you're doing from a benchmark standpoint, how your clients move through your business, how does the money flow from client acquisition to converting them into a client, to delivering your service, to collecting the income from that service, right? If you look at how much time it takes to go through that process and you identify ways that you can improve the efficiency of that. Here's a concrete example. Let's say I take on a job. This is an example from the private investigative industry. We would take on skip tracing work. And we're good at skip tracing, but it's not what we do, and it's not our ideal market. Our ideal market in that company, we were serving insurance companies. We did insurance fraud investigations, and skip tracing was a side kind of thing that we could offer. And we would make anywhere from $75 to, if it was a really big skip trace, somebody that was hard to find, a couple $100. So our insurance clients would pay us $750 a day, but the skip trace work was fun and it required us to be creative in our thinking and our approach. And so it would take us months and months sometimes to get that skip trace work done. Whereas our regular routine clients, we were able to serve them faster. So we really needed to be looking at whether or not that skip trace work was viable for us to do.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah.
Because, if it's taking us 3 to 6 months just to remember that we have this client out there that needs this skip trace done, Skip tracing, if you're curious about it, is finding somebody who is skipping out on a debt.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we were going to investigate. We would do asset searches, which would require a site visit to find out if they had assets that could be attached. That was part of the work. But it was outside of our norm, and sometimes it required us to be a little tricky in getting people to respond to a request. So it was not a normal process. The regular process of our work that was our bread and butter, we could move people in and out get them on a schedule within a week and a half to 2 weeks. Well, what if we could serve those clients and get them on a schedule within 2 to 3 days? What would that do to our cash flow if we could turn those cases around faster? It would have an exponential impact. So that's part of what creating a comparative advantage is about. It's also about adding value, right? So what is the value you bring to the table for your clients that allows you to charge a premium price, right? So what more expertise can you add? How can you systematize?
Well, I just wanted to go back to the skip tracing example because I think it is a classic example of what we entrepreneurs do. We chase the shiny objects, the squirrels, the things that are fun and not easily systematized and not worked into our regular routine. And so even though it may be fun, it adds complexity to the business, and complexity is the enemy of profit. It is the enemy of freed up time for an entrepreneur who wants to take their life back. So even though it is fun for us, we entrepreneurs, we need to find other ways in our lives to have fun and look at how can we reduce that complexity in our business.
Yeah, good point.
So, and the other piece that I find very fun about the work we do, and we do systematize this at Tap the Potential, that is looking at how to better our clients' businesses. So it's really coming from that perspective of let's better our best. These are the things that work well in your business. These are your top clients. How can you better serve them? So speaking to what you were talking about, adding value. And how do we improve the processes that are already there and make them more and more efficient? Because if we take 3 small parts of a process and increase efficiency by a couple percentage points, that is what will trickle very fast to the bottom line and have a big impact. But if we're so busy chasing squirrels and doing things that are outside of our norm, we don't even have time or capacity, mental capacity, to explore those things. And this reminds me of a conversation that you weren't in this one yesterday. You missed out. It was a fun one. Darren and I were working with a client who has, he came into our call with lots of wins and successes, wonderful things that have happened, including going from a place of having a lot of money on a line of credit, some debt, not much cash in the bank, and now at this point, really having a significant amount of cash in the bank, line of credit almost totally paid down. And that's highly unusual for this time of year in that business. So this business is in a good cash position. And we were talking about, I threw out a challenge. I said, what would it be like to go from 10% profit to 15% profit over the next 12 to 18 months? And that was an eye-opening conversation because the first reaction was, well, I don't think we can cut any more expenses, Dr. Sabrina. We are lean. And I said, well, wait, I'm not really talking about cutting more expenses. I'm talking about let's try to hold the expenses as steady as they are because you have a good handle on that and look for ways to add value. And that's where we started talking about subscription-based programs for the most profitable services and most profitable customers. And we walked through several things that he could be doing in his business. And in that conversation, he said, I notice lots of little things as I'm going through the day where we could be more efficient, but I never capture them because I'm just going from one thing to the next. And I said, what would it be like to start capturing those on your phone or in your notebook and then taking it to your team and asking them for ideas of how to improve and make these things more efficient? And he said, that would be wonderful. And so as we wrapped up that conversation, the conclusion was, if he takes action, and we'll make sure we're going to hold him accountable. That's what we do at Tap the Potential. So when he takes action on the strategy that came out of that call over the next 12 to 18 months, that will bring in several $100,000 to the bottom line revenue, to profit.
That's awesome. It reminds me, before I joined Tap the Potential, I was working with a client. He was renting space on property that was owned by a family member. He was paying $250 a month for the rent. That's fantastic. And from an expense standpoint, you might want to continue that. But here's what was happening. He had 3 separate buildings. And he was doing screen printing, and his screen print shop was in a separate building with no air conditioning and no heat. And that equipment generates an awful lot of heat. And in the wintertime, it's fine, right? It actually keeps the place kind of cozy and warm. But in the summertime, I'm in North Carolina. He was in North Carolina. It is sweltering in this building, and their efficiency tanks. He can't keep people in there. They keep getting sick, right? But he's tolerating it. He's been in business for nearly 20 years in this same kind of environment. And it takes an outside person to come in and say, I wouldn't actually want to work in that. If that were my environment in the summer, I'd be taking a lot of time off. So where is it impacting you that you don't see? Like we get so tolerant of circumstances and expect it to be, well, that's just the way it always is. And I know that's kind of a buzzword and people are sensitive when they hear that, but they don't realize how often they do it.
Yeah.
We know not to think that way, and yet we do it.
We do it. And like you're pointing out, it has a significant impact on the profitability of the business. When we can, from an outsider looking in, we can see opportunities to make that better. But the person in that situation, it's just the way it is. We've kind of gotten into our little box of how this is how we do things. It's so valuable to have that outside perspective. So I think this is a good transition point to talk about the big question that you saw out in one of a Facebook group. And it's a common question, and that is, I would like to open a second location. And the question was framed of, I'm curious to know, how difficult is it to open up a second location for your business? I'm debating on opening a second location 30 miles away from my current facility and just want to know what to take into consideration. So, Stacey, let's you and I discuss this. You had some really good thoughts about this.
Yeah. So my first thought, and this may not be what I put in my post, but my first thought is, why?
Why?
Why do you want to do that? And, what is driving the decision to open another location? I found in my experience that the driving factor is because they're customers that we're not serving, and we want to be serving them. And that's a competitive kind of standpoint. And so my inclination is to go, wait, I don't think so. We need to explore this a little bit more. So what do you see, Dr. Sabrina?
I see exactly that. So from a competitive standpoint, it's looking out and saying there's a market share over there, 30 miles away. No one is serving that. It's prime opportunity for us. Let's go after it. Mm-hmm. When we look at it internally from the existing business, the big questions that start rolling through my head is your current existing business maximizing its profit potential first? Let's make sure that house is totally in order before we go over and build another business. Because if you're not maximizing your profit potential, you are stretching your resources, your personal resources and your existing team's resources to open up another location. So your current location, the efficiency there that you have is going to decrease most likely. And you're going to have, it's just like kind of starting up a new business. You have a startup on the other side now. And we all know about the success rates of startups. And it takes usually about 3 years to build profitability unless you're using profit first. We've had good success with getting our startup to profit.
Profit first would make you immediately profitable, right? But not even profit first. It's easy conceptually. It is not easy to implement.
Right.
So yeah, that's one thing. But as you're talking about that, Dr. Sabrina, I'm thinking about all the businesses that are successful. They are growing, they have clients, they're serving their market well, and they are a disorganized mess.
Yeah.
So they can be profitable and inefficient and they can be profitable and stretched thin, right? So where is it that you're successful, and I like the way you position the question, have you maximized what the potential is already in one location? Because when you open too soon, you think you're chasing the revenue, right? And I just want more dollars because more dollars incoming. Mike talks about this all the time. More revenue will solve all of the problems downhill. And that's a fallacy that many business owners believe in. And maybe in flush times, when the economy is good and there's a lot of capital available for people to spend, that might be true. But when it's lean, it's not true, right? And you end up just exploding the problems from one location to two locations, and then you think a third location, economy of scale, is going to solve the problem. And you just grow beyond your ability to manage. You have to grow your personal ability to lead and grow your team's ability to lead in your absence. And that's part of maximizing the potential for profitability, right?
Yeah.
So it goes hand in hand. And I find in reading our clients' financial reports, you can see the disorganization sometimes in their numbers and in their chart of accounts and in their P&L and in their balance sheet. And it goes, if those two things, your P&L and your balance sheet, are not accurate, your cash flow statement is meaningless. And you can be profitable and not have any cash on hand. So that understanding how those three reports work together is sort of a critical part of the process. And most business owners are only looking at their P&L. They are in the day-to-day operations, what came in, what went out, and they're not thinking about building their assets and reducing their liabilities. And they're not thinking about what happens to their owner's equity. And, in the years where they're adding to, they don't understand where that money is in their balance sheet.
Yeah. So I think it's also important to share. We have some stories from our clients who have had success opening multiple locations. And we also have clients who come in the door to us with multiple locations who close the extra locations to get to profit. And so I want to talk about that side of it first. When we take on new clients, we're really looking at, and this is somebody who is, when they started working with us, stretched very thin. Again, back at that entrepreneurial burnout point of, going back and forth between two locations. And really the analogy that I think about is like that little boy and the dike, the story from Hans Brinker and the skates. And he's the hero of Harlem story. And he puts his finger in the dike to try to plug all the holes and protect the city. And so when we entrepreneurs have these disorganized businesses and inefficiencies, it's really us who runs around and sticks our fingers in the holes of the dike. And we run out of fingers. I mean, we've only got 10 fingers. We could use our toes, but at some point we run out and we can't plug those holes, and it puts a lot of stress on us. And so when you have a second location, that just becomes, stretching beyond capacity. So it was really about looking from a lifestyle perspective first about what would that be like to just have one location. And immediately, I saw stress falling off just even as she entertained that idea. And then looking at from a profit standpoint, what would that look like? And then we started talking through, well, I could get rid of this expense. I could get rid of that expense. I don't have that rent. And oh my gosh, it was just so clear at that point that second location was actually pulling profitability away from the main location that had the most potential to be profitable. And to contrast that, I think about another client that I've worked with who came to me because he was, he had totally outgrown his space. I remember our first meeting was like in this little tiny closet and he was renting space from another business and it was a shared space. And so his team and everything they were doing were kind of scattered all over that building. And he was like, I think I need another location. And he was really scared about the monetary investment in that. And it was challenging. And out of our conversation, he ended up purchasing his next building. And then through my years of working with him, he actually added several locations during that time. And it happened based on we've maximized what we can do here. So we're going to expand this location. And then we have another market over here in this other geographic area that we can serve, and we can do it efficiently. And it was done from the perspective of how can we conserve our resources? How can we minimize costs and better utilize our team and add team to those locations? So it can be a successful model.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not to say that it can't be done, but it's timing and knowing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, right? Just a good old SWOT analysis. Where's the opportunity, the threat, the strengths, and the weaknesses?
Yeah. You, in the post that you made in your reply to that question, you laid out some really good questions for consideration. Mm-hmm. Do you have those in front of you?
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to read them because I think our listeners would like to hear these. So here are questions to consider. What is your overall vision for your company? Who are your ideal clients? And how are you serving them and innovating around serving them better? How much time am I spending now working in my business? And how much time do I spend working on my business? Am I sufficiently capitalized in order to support growing another location? What in my current location is optimized so that I can export those systems and processes to another location and maximize the profitability of a second location?
Good questions. Yeah, I think I like the second and the third to the last question probably best.
So what was the third to the last question?
So the third to the last, I think that was about how much time am I working in my business versus on my business? Because here's the thing, going back to your analogy of plugging the holes in the dike to keep the water back, right? When we're working in the business and we're over functioning for our team, we don't have the capacity to add another location because we're already doing too much. So when you think about if I am only working in my business 20% of the time, right? I have 80% that I'm working on my business for business development. Then I'm in a better position to be the leader that I need in that other location. So however you're going to do that, if you are the person who's going to open up that other location, build the team, it's not going to be a 3-month thing. It's going to be a 12-month thing or an 18-month thing to get it stabilized, depending on how much time and energy you have available to get it up and running and functioning. Otherwise, it's going to drag the other business location down, right? Because you're putting too much pressure on that first location and it's not manageable. 30 miles distance in this particular situation doesn't seem like a really long way, but I live in Greensboro, North Carolina, and a 20-minute drive is about 8 miles. So, right, that can be a big challenge when you're trying to go back and forth and include a team in another town over in your planning and development in the first location. So think about the logistics of it. There's all these logistics questions that come up around what the opportunity really is that the scenario doesn't tell us a whole lot.
And to throw another monkey wrench in here, the issues that come up around scaling culture from one location to the next. So I can personally speak to this at Tap the Potential. We're a virtual team. Our team members are all over the country. And so building a cohesive team in that kind of environment where people are not sharing physical space it takes a lot of thought and intention to do that and time. So if you are used to sharing physical space and then you're looking at adding another location, how will you integrate the two different teams and how will you create that scalable culture? And it's interesting, with multiple locations like across the state, some people want to do that. You can have different cultures 2 hours away. And in Louisiana, that is very much the case. So we have our Cajun culture, which is South Louisiana. That's a very different culture than North Louisiana. So if you were going to build a team and you were going to have one office in North Louisiana and one down near New Orleans, you really have two different cultures that you're going to be dealing with. And how are you going to integrate that? It takes a lot of thought hiring the A players, you want to think through how are you going to fill your team over there with your A players. If you've been, hiring 3 or 4 people a year, and now you're going to be looking at hiring 6 or 8 a year, you're doubling your hiring. And do you have that recruitment system, that how to hire the best A player attraction system in place even?
So an exceptionally good tool, right? So, and that wasn't even one of the things that I was considering, but I know from working with our retail clients that just having a team meeting in one location when you're a retail space and you're open X hours to X hours and everybody's already working close to full-time hours, trying to get somebody to a meeting at a different location is challenging. It's definitely challenging. I do want to say, though, that there are opportunities around technology that can make that easier, right? Like we're on a call with Zoom with our clients twice a week, every week. So, well, not all our clients simultaneously.
That would be a lot, wouldn't it? That would be a huge call.
But that's what our would be. I'm looking forward to the day that we have that. But yeah, so... But you can develop those team meetings. It's about frequency. It's about the interaction, having the opportunity to go away on site. I'm thinking about one of our clients who they had a great growth year and they celebrated by being able to take their A players and their A players' families to a resort for a meeting. And so being able to do that, and then what the benefits that came out of that closeness and the unity that they had from being able to do that is something they want to be able to do in future years. So how do we plan for that so that it's possible? Yeah. So there are ways around it. You do need to be intentional about it.
Mm-hmm. And having others on the team ready to take leadership roles who are also willing to travel, because they really are the conveyors of the culture and supporting you in that. So there's a lot of considerations for a second location. I personally lean towards maximize what you have first and then consider, does it make sense to?
So let me ask you a question, Dr. Sabrina. How do you know in the financial statement, how do you know when you have maximized what you've got in one location? What's a number?
That is an excellent question. A real simple tool is a profit analysis of the business and using the profit first target allocation percentages and seeing, okay, for a business of my revenue size, I should be able to have 10 or 15% profit that is not being plowed back into the business. It's in an account. It's getting taken off of the top and going into account and not being utilized. That is a real quick and dirty indicator of, is this business maximizing its profit potential?
So wait, 15% of net profit going into an account, and that is after taxes are paid, right? After owners pay.
Yeah. So let's talk about the owner's pay piece too.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm just wondering, so in my experience, business owners who have that 15% net profit after owners pay, after tax, and it's sitting in an account, tend to start buying equipment. And now they're in a position where they have debt that is maybe taking away from that 15%. So what if the number is actually 20 to 25% so that you can continue with 10% of that being reinvested in the business?
That's even better. That's even more efficient. And so that's what I think is an important point of this whole conversation is there's always opportunities to improve the existing profitability of the current location. And sometimes it takes that outside person to point out those opportunities, but they do exist. And I also want to throw out some caution that if we build profitability too high, other parts of the business could suffer. And so I think about, taking away from team development and education and doing that in order just to get that profit number high. That wouldn't be a healthy business. So it is always a fine balancing act. And I want to highlight what you said, though. We're talking about after taxes are paid for the business and for the owner. Because with Profit First, when we set tax money aside, it's covering the owner's tax burden too. And the owners of the business are taking a appropriate salary and pay. So not the amount of salary or wage that we take in order to avoid paying a lot of payroll taxes, but an appropriate salary, and that the business can demonstrate that it can afford to pay the owner an appropriate salary for being a CEO level person or a C-suite level person in the business. The reason that's so important is because when we want to sell our business, I don't want to say if we want to sell, we always want to sell at some point. When we want to retire, we want that business to go somewhere if we've run it that long. So when we want to sell, we need to show that the business can support a C-suite executive or several C-suite executives and pay appropriate compensation. If the business can't show that, it's not sellable. Nobody wants to buy a job.
Well, there's a little caveat with that, though. There are some people who are looking for a business that has enough inefficiency in it that they can create a salary and make that company a more efficient business. So they are looking for a lifestyle. They are looking maybe for a business that has a country club membership and certain benefits attached to it, because that is what they're looking for. But so not everyone is looking for that. But you have to, as when you're looking for a business to buy, that might be one of the criterias that you're thinking about.
Well, and I think you're spot on that there are people out there looking to buy inefficient businesses because they want to essentially flip the business.
Because they want to maximize that profit for themselves.
Yeah. But for the owner that's selling that business, what that means is you're not going to get the highest dollar value. They're looking for a good deal. You are their bargain.
Right. And chances are really enormous that you have worked your entire life. This business has been your life. It's supported your family in a particular way. It is heart and soul. And that's hard to reconcile, that you've already taken out of the business the value that the business created. So you've already received it. That's a really hard reckoning. Working with, not that I've done this, but I know several people who are in the mergers and acquisitions area, and it takes about 18 months to package a business for sale because they have to fix all those inefficiencies in the business to make sure there's enough to get the value out of the business that the business owner is looking for.
Yes. As we're talking about this, I'm getting so excited about our VIP day at the Breakthroughs on the Bayou retreat that's coming up in a couple weeks, because we have Sir Stephen Wilkinson, who's been here on the podcast with us talking about entrepreneur as an investor. He's doing a full day experiential workshop with us, and we're going to play Gator Tank. And we have 4 to 5 business owners who will have the opportunity to put their businesses up for sale. Not literally up for sale, but pretend up for sale and go through the process.
What an amazing opportunity to learn how that works. Like, I know a number of our clients and probably our listeners are Shark Tank fans. I am. I love Shark Tank. I could watch it for hours on hours. But just learning how to value the business and how to negotiate for the best deal is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. But, just mentioning Sir Stephen, one of the graphics that he showed us, and I know we work with a lot of business owners, some business owners come to us with this idea that in my industry, a 4% net profit is normal, right? Net profit, bottom line, 4%. But there's a gap, a huge gap between the best of the best and the average. So 4% net profit might be an average in your industry, but it doesn't have to be your average. You can do better than that. It is possible.
Yeah, and that becomes the glass ceiling. The self-imposed glass ceiling is I can't do more than 4%. And I think about several clients that I have that started with me in that place. And this was long before Profit First existed. This is long before I knew Mike McAllowitz. And they came in and they said, I had 3% profit this year. I am ecstatic.
Right.
And as we started looking into Profit First and applying that in the business, these are some of the same business owners who are now going for 10, 15% profitability. They are blowing their industry standard out of the water And one of them is repeatedly has had his accountant come to him and say, we are in an economic downturn in this area. You are the only business owner who I'm doing their taxes for who's showing a profit. What are you doing?
It's strategy.
Strategy, lots and lots of strategy. And it's all around maximizing the efficiency of these businesses.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we've been able to bring to our business owners is the 34 strengths model with 34 strong. And if it's a partnership, I don't know what you would consider that, but the opportunity to learn about our strengths and operate from our strengths is all part of creating that comparative advantage.
Yes. So I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because that is something we have put a lot of attention to on the Tap the Potential team in the last year after we've gone through. And Darren Virasamy of 34 Strong is who Stacey's referencing, and we do have a partnership with them. And we went through the Strengths Finder training, and we have put significant attention to, are we working from our strengths, and to what extent week to week did we get to utilize our strengths? I'm hoping Stacey's going to end this week with a 10 from this podcast discussion, because I can see her on Zoom and you guys can't see her, but her cheeks are all rosy and she's lit up. She is eating this stuff up, guys.
I do. I really, really love this stuff. And I think I was born for it, but I was also created for it. Like, life has brought me here for a reason. And I think I've been doing coaching and strategy for so much longer than I thought it was something to do. Then I knew that it was something to do. Going back 20, 25 years at least as an unintended business coach and strategist. So
yeah. And work is fun when we get to do what we enjoy doing. And we do more of it. Like, I see you, Stacey, intentionally looking and researching, how can I do this for our clients? And if we have this tool, or I go a little deeper learning this, it will help 5 or 6 of our clients. And I always say, go for it, Stacey. Let's keep going.
I appreciate the encouragement for sure. And learner is one of my top strengths. Input is my number one strength. So feed me, see more information. I need information. Give me the big picture. Yeah, that'll make sense of it.
And me, as the maximizer and the relator, I love looking for, what can I do for Stacey? What else can I give her that's going to make her happy, where she's having fun and it's serving our clients? So I'm always looking to maximize that. So I want to throw out, we have Darren joining us for the 2021 Breakthroughs on the Bayou 4-week vacation impact retreat. So he's going to be our VIP workshop presenter for that retreat. And our retreat participants are going to get the opportunity to do a really deep dive on building teams from strengths, working from their own strengths. It's going to be good times.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation this morning, Stacey, and I think we have hit on some topics that have probably created some aha moments for our listeners. So, and Stacey, I think you probably would enjoy this too. If you come into the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group and tell us what you're taking away from this conversation. What did it spark for you? What did it get you thinking about in your business? What questions are you asking yourself as a result of Stacey and I discussing some of these different issues today?
That's fantastic. Yeah, that will make me a 15 today.
A 15. All right, guys, you got to go in the Facebook group and post, because we want Stacey to end her week with a 15 on how well she's gotten to work from her strengths.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Dr. Sabrina.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
If you're like most business owners, you have a cash-sucking business that's taking over your life. After the first year in our Better Business, Better Life program at Tap the Potential, you'll have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had. Get started. Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.